Imhotep African family, and welcome to today's Building the Lighted Temple Wisdom Service. Once again, I am delighted to be spending this glorious Grand Rising Ra Sunday with each and every one of you. And in the midst of these troubled times, we come together in these ethereal waters, this universalizing resonant vibrational field, this etheric space, this virtual space where we can amplify our vibration and distribute the light. And this is liberated space. So once again, for the purpose of the recording, I am Dr. Nteri Nelson, a metaphysician, a licensed clinician and educator, and co-founder of the Academy of Kemetic Education and Wellness. So I want to just begin, as we always begin, just to greet each and every one of you. So today we are continuing with our Eloquent Peasant, Part 3. And certainly there is the intended goal to finish this Kemetic wisdom story, but we'll see what happens. And the title again of our wisdom service is Truth, Justice, Harmony, and Balance, the metaphysical meaning of balance, as we look at the story of the Eloquent Peasant and to see it in relationship to an application to the things that are happening in our so-called daily living. So I won't review, for those who have missed part 1 and part 2, those videos will be up, and you'll be able to get a review in the first and part 1 and part 2. So, so you'll know exactly where we go in this story. And beloveds, as we begin today's wisdom service, we are not absent enough example and application and daily living for the many transgressions that are happening on our planet, these incursions, these travails, and that which rails against us as a planetary family, as a human family. And these applications are found in our daily living and reflected in our story, The Eloquent Peasant, which our African ancestors have so wisely and so eloquently gifted us with, so we may be guided during these troubled times. And just to list, I could name 7 of them. I could imagine you could name even more. But when we look for transgressions, that which would go against the laws of Ma'at, how we hold in balance the right and might, how we hold in balance the right to assert the fullness of the one true self, which is Herakuti, balanced against or balanced with the right of others, and not to transgress against the right of others to assert the very one and the same one true self as Osir. So the balance of Herakuti and Ma'at, and these are the shoulders as we have learned the scales. Let me just hold our scales up. I gotta, so always we are striving for this balance. So examples in modern, in so-called modern daily living, which at times certainly seems barbaric, but where we see examples of these transgressions as the transgression that occurred with Khun-Anup, the main character in our story, the Eloquent Peasant. the transgression of the robbery that occurred for him, but other reflections of these transgressions or incursions of these travails that we're undergoing. One, we have the racial incursions that are now we are in the midst of, where we are, you know, seemingly on the verge of civil war or teetering on that verge, with democracy itself being in peril, with the incursions happening, which would kick a major pillar from underneath of it, which is the right to vote, to fair and equal and honest elections. And as I said in last week's service, it isn't that democracy has worked for us as African descended people, but we have been striving for the promise of that fulfillment. And so just as it is on the precipice of the prospect of working, it is also simultaneously in the peril of being derailed. A second threat or incursion and this is the invasion of Ukraine. And now, of course, we have known invasions to our African continent, that has been certainly major in our history. But this is a threatened European incursion, but nevertheless, it would have global impact militarily, economically, and environmentally, if in light of if nuclear weapons or weapons as weapons of mass destruction are used. So Khun-Anup in the story of this eloquent peasant has much to teach us about what happens when one transgresses on the right of another. Thirdly, we have the incursion upon our immune systems with COVID-19 mandates. And even as I speak today, beloveds, there's a march that is planned on Washington to, quote, defeat the mandates. And that march is scheduled for today. And so that is something to keep our eye on. And a fourth incursion is the incursion from nature and global warming itself. Beloveds, as we see the incursions of water, you know, coming in places where we live and wouldn't want water gushing there, fire, earthquakes, wind with the tornadoes, and on January 14th, this eruption of this volcano, the Tonga Hunga Hapai volcano, which sits on the seismically active Pacific Ring of Fire, and which also sent tsunami waves across the Pacific Ocean. And could be heard as far away as New Zealand. So, you know, just not only the immediate impact, but the sound waves that are impacting our environment. Fifthly, the incursion of gun violence that abounds, with America being foremost in gun violence. In the supermarket, the city streets, the schools, movies, theaters, just all that can happen as you, as Khun-Anup with your donkeys heavy laden, trying to cross over and things happening. Sixthly, the incursion of cyberspace attacks Not just on major levels that can affect huge systems, our medical, our gas lines, our all our resources, but also on a personal level, people coming under these cyber attacks where they're lose data and are held hostage and their stuff taken. Lastly, incursion against women's rights to their bodies, where a government would make decision for them versus them being in their own agency making decisions for themselves. So it didn't take too long to find multiple examples in the application of our story today. Just going to check back here and see if there's anybody I missed before we really get started in our story. All right, so here we go. So please put your questions in the Q&A and I will answer them as we go along. All right, so remember our key characters in this story: Khun-Anup, who was robbed, Nemtinak, who robbed him, Rensi, son of Meru, who Khun-Anup has appealed to take his case further, that he might get justice, and the Nesubiti, who is the ultimate decider in this series of events, and Ma'at, who is our nature of balance, truth, harmony, justice, and right relationship. So let's go to the story. I'm going to share my screen with you. We're picking up on page 43, or actually moving into 45. And I'm just going to grab this little spotlight in case I need it. Okay. All right, so here we go, family. So in continuing, he says, now I have spoken out against the aggressor. This is Khun-Anup, and the crocodile retreats. But what is the gain thereof to you? The secret of the truth will be found, and falsehood will be cast on the ground. Do not make provision for the following day before it has come, since one cannot know what is going to happen in it. When this peasant had said these words, the high steward Rensi, son of Meru, went to the entrance of the portal and made 2 guards turn against him with whips. And if you remember, beloveds, let me just capture some of his words. This is what he said to Rensi before. Let me capture his really holding him to, taking him to task. I won't go all the way back, well, because we talked about some of this. A great one who was greedy is not really great. Consider that, when we have all these millionaires and billionaires, and then we have food insecure children in our country. Your tongue is the pointer of the balance. And I will talk later and show a PowerPoint on more on the metaphysical meaning of the tongue. And he goes on to say, your heart is the weight and your lips are its arms. But if you shut your eyes to the impudent, then who will repel evil? Look, you are a dishonorable washerman who is keen on destroying friendship, one who wrongs his confidant for his client. Anyone who comes and supplies to him is his brother. Look, you are a ferryman who ferries across anyone who has a fare. In other words, if you got the bribe, if you got the money, you can get on board. A righteous man whose righteousness has crumbled. So here's our beloved Khun-Anup taking Renzi, this so-called noble who's supposed to do the right thing. Look, like we're taking our legislatures and Senate and Congress people to task. Look, you are the chief of a workhouse who won't let an unemployed person through at once. Look, you are a hawk to the people, one who lives on defenseless birds. Look, you are a cook whose joy is to slaughter and who is not touched by the gruesomeness thereof. Look, you are a herdsman. Is it not bad for me then that you cannot be prudent? Of course it's bad for us if that's the case, if those who are in office, those who are to be in stewardship of and be a part of the flow of resources and in a shared communal agreement for expediency, for efficacy, to have communal living in life where all can enjoy. If those who have been officially put in charge as these officials, then if they're not acting honorably, then, or leaving a certain portion of the populace out, then we are in not good hands. May you become less like a ravenous crocodile, he says. For shelter has vanished from the harbor of the entire land. And that's what happens when the officials are corrupt. There's no shelter. If you have the book Without Sanctuary, this is a riveting book with the images, the pictures of Black people, of African people in this country where they were being lynched. The book is called Without Sanctuary. And imagine that word, to not have sanctuary, to not have a court, an official, anyone who would watch out for your rights or protect you. For shelter has vanished from the harbor of the entire land. And that's what happened for, we've had to, push for that shelter. Hearer, you do not really hear, but why do you not hear? So this is the stopping of the ears we talked of the laws of Ma'at that I talked about last session. I have spoken out against the aggressor and the crocodile retreats. But what is the gain thereof to you? The secret of truth will be found and falsehood will be cast on the ground. And so here he comes to, so when this peasant had said these words, he touched a nerve. The high steward Renzi, son of Meru, went to the entrance of the portal and made two guards turn against him with whips. And they thrashed all his limbs therewith. And so, beloveds, I stop my share at this moment to show you another image. And here we look at what happens as we, as the eloquent peasant, make our case. And here we have this image of our beloved Dr. Martin Luther King, and who is certainly one of our many eloquent peasants, as Khun-Anup. And our African ancestors knew of these times. And it is Brensi, son of Meru, who pauses to bring this case to the Nesubiti, that rules of right engagement and right relationship and all the things that the eloquent peasant Khun-Anup had to teach in spirit would be recorded. So we have this image of where Martin Luther King is struck on the head by a rock thrown by a group of hecklers. Dr. Martin Luther King falls to one knee. Dr. King regained his feet and led a group of marchers demonstrating alleged housing discrimination through an all-white district in Chicago in this August '66. Here we are, beloveds, in 2022, and we, know when our story of Khun-Anup is set, and at that time, we lived in times where we more homogenous in terms of African people. Before African people went out and populated the world, and then we had this unfoldment of these seeming racial types who then began to travel and interface one another and have to work out these rules of engagement and right relationship, and all the while the installation of a white supremacist paradigm, which would dominate the planet. It's good that what the Khun-Anup said was written down, because we need to refer to it now more than ever. All right, so let me just switch back to our text. And again, if there's questions, please put them there, and let's go back here. Okay, then this peasant said, so the son of Meru must go astray, since his face is blind to what he sees and deaf to what he hears. And that's what happens. That's what's happening on January 6th. There's just, going astray, being blind to everything, and is straying from what it is reminded of. Look, you are a town without a mayor, like a meeting without a chairman, like a ship without a captain, like a gang without a leader. And beloveds, let me take you here a moment, back to that PowerPoint, and remind you of where this is in our spiritual equipment. That leader, that passage in this story is really referring to being in our inner agency. We've talked about this in our studies, how in KaAbBa, how we have to be in the Ab triangle as Haru, to be in that agency where we are able to direct the course, to be in in good government within ourselves, because if we are not in our Haru, if we are not in the Op triangle, then there's nobody home. You go to, knock on the door, and there's no official there. There's no one in good government within ourselves. And then this is when others who are asserting their power become agencies over individual agency. So we need individual agency to even work in a co-partnership with an external agency, or else you have people who are in power and then people who are enslaved. And so that is not our course. So I'm going to come back to the story. And like a gang without a leader, like a ship without a captain. Look, you are a policeman who steals, a mayor who accepts bribes. Not a whole lot has changed. Same government, because what did African people do? They gave the world government, the uniting of the North and the South, the red and white crown, and all the elements of what it is to govern. We gave the world that example of governance. A district overseer who should restrain robbery, but who has become a pattern for the criminal. And this peasant came to plead with him for a fourth time. So beloveds, we're up to 4 out of 10 pleas. And, we might wonder what plea we are in, not up to Martin Luther King, but even up to George Floyd in getting justice once and for all. And so continuing, and found him, and this peasant came to plead with him for the fourth time, and found him emerging from the gate of the temple of Arasus. He said, "Praised one, may Arasus, from whose temple you have come, praise you. Goodness has been harmed." Now, so you see the eloquence of this peasant, this eloquent peasant. Now he's appealing to, he's working to call forth the greatness that is in all of us when it is awakened. He's shifted from his taking him to task through a direct criticism, and now he's shifting to call him to the better self, the better true self that he can be. He says, "Goodness has been harmed. There is no accumulation of it, nor is there casting of falsehood on the ground. Has the ferry sunk? Who can be ferried across when the one who should bring about the deed is unwilling? Crossing the river on foot, a good crossing or not? Now, who can sleep till dawn? For obstructed are going by, night traveling by day, and letting a man attend is truly good cause. Look, it is no use to tell you this, for mercy has left you." So now, he's calling him again to task. "How lamentable is this, is the poor man you ruin. Look," and I think about this, how lamentable is the poor man you ruin. Just think of all the potential, all those who weren't, because of this transgression, weren't able to live up to their full potential, the children in school who are obstructed or told they won't amount to much and their path is obstructed. So many children adults tell the story of how things were said and done in their school years, formative school years, that obstructed their path or spurred them to become the lawyers and doctors that they wanted to be. Look, you are a hunter who slacks his desire, bent on doing what he wants, who harpoons hippopotami, shoots wild bulls, catches fish and snares birds. Yet there is none hasty of speech who is free of spluttering, and none light of heart who is weighty of thought. Be tender-hearted so that you will learn justice. I mean, this is what we're here on earth to teach, to learn ourselves and to teach. And African people who first populated the world have and gave the world everything in every human endeavor: mathematics, science, government, the human family itself, herbology, chemistry, you name it. Now, through this spiritual journey of unfolding consciousness, we are having to call forth justice, and living in right relationship within our seeming diversity as one human family. We wrote these laws, we worked this out, this philosophy of right relationship and intelligence. We work these things out among ourselves. And then as we unfolded from ourselves, these seeming racial types who in turn would have a seeming separation or divisiveness that would, in conflict, we are the underpinning, we undergird the working out and the restoration of, and we wrote it down, we recorded it already. Our beloved Khun-Anup and others, all the writings on the wall have already saw this day and did the work, and we are benefiting from it today. Be tender-hearted so that you will learn justice. Suppress your choice for the good of him who enters humbly, for there is no brute who attains excellence. Isn't that, that's so beautifully said, there's no brute. In other words, if you use Harakuti at the lower spiral, just be a brute, because that's the potential in these balancing the scales, might over right. Harakuti can be used, the Martian energy can be used at a lower turn of the spiral to be tyrannical and brutish, but our beloved pheasant who owns donkeys, or until they were stolen, he says there is no brute who attains excellence. Look what our African ancestors were interested in. They were interested in excellence and being ma'akuru, true voice. And there is no impatient man whom one turns to. Let the eyes see so that the heart be informed. And we learn at length, beloveds, the connection between the heart and the eye. They are intricately connected. As the heart grows, the eye grows. As the eye grows, the heart grows. And as I have written, part of the system of apartheid in Africa, in South Africa, when you dispel the word apartheid, it is apart eye. In other words, eyeing things in part, not able to see in wholeness. Don't be haughty in proportion to your might, so that evil doesn't reach you. So we have a lot of haughty folks, you know, a lot of haughty. We don't even have to start with Trump or stop with Trump. I mean, there's a lot of haughty folks who are just flexing their muscle as if, you know, we put them in office to do that, for flexing muscle's sake in and of itself, as a demonstration of their power, and instead of recognizing our power and empowerment to put them there. He says, tolerate one misdeed and it will become two. So in other words, if you cut yourself slack, it just grows. It is the eater who tastes, so one who is questioned replies. It is the sleeper who dreams. As for a judge who ought to be punished, he is a pattern for the criminal. Fool, look, you are found out. You know, when we think of what's happening physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually, we're poising on all of these levels, foremost spiritually. But when you know you're talking back to those who are abusing their power, and you have to be prepared for their blows. I mean, we want to give honor and reverence and praise to all those who talk back and knew they had to be ready to receive blows. I think foremost of which is George James in writing the book Stolen Legacy, to which he sacrificed his life to reveal these truths. Fannie Lou Hamer, Harriet Tubman, so many of our heroes and sheroes. He is a pattern for the criminal fool. Look, you are found out. Ignoramus, look, you are questioned. And, when you read some of the enslaved narratives, and you hear some of the things that the enslaved would say to those who were about to hang them, just hanging to the end, just courage, just the courage to go and to trod the path of righteousness. Bailer of water, look, you are noticed. Helmsman, don't let your ship get off course. So now he's appealing to his better self, because we are the helmsman if we stay on track. Giver of life, don't let people die. Here we are in the 60s and now 2022, don't let people die. Destroyer, don't let people perish. Shade, don't be as the blazing sun. Shelter. So you're saying you're the shade and don't be the blazing sun, and you're the shelter. Don't let the crocodile snatch. In other words, be fair, be balanced. The fourth time already of pleading with you, shall I spend all day at it? Now he's doing the math and saying, what's it going to take? And that's where we are, beloveds. What's it going to take? We are not there yet. And this peasant came to plead with him for a fifth time. He said, High Steward, my Lord, the nature is fish. The new fisherman is killing ye fish. The fish spear is harpooning abui fish. The dabui fisherman is after paker fish. The fisherman ravages the river. Look, you are the same. Do not defraud a poor man of his property. A slight man whom you know. The belongings of a pauper are his breath. To take them away is to stop up his nose. You were appointed to hear cases, to judge between litigants, and to punish the robber. Our African ancestors were masters in the law. You can see this in the writings of Chinua Achebe. When things fall apart, there is that narrative and scene where, if you interpret it, if you understand how it's a proceeding between two people where there has been a dispute. But look, what you are doing is supporting the thief. You are trusted, yet you have become a transgressor. And now, of course, I wonder where our trust is, or ever has been, or will be, to even affirm you are trusted yet. But we have acted as if we are working with a humanity that can be trusted and gain our trust and not betray our trust. You were appointed to be a dike for the pauper, so take care that he doesn't drown. But look, you are the lake that pulls him on. Now he's going to the other. Don't you love the way he just works in his eloquence? He says, now he's given the other side, but look, you are the lake that pulls him under. And this peasant came to plead with him for a sixth time. Look at our tenacity, our insistence, our determination, family. And he said, High Steward, my Lord, who eradicates falsehood? In other words, if it's not you who we have put in a higher place, with all the, the taxes that support your execution of moving resources, acting in fairness, building the roads to get supplies where people need to have them. He says, who eradicates falsehood? Who creates truth and creates all goodness? Who destroys evil? Like when Sekhti comes, being full, being, satiated, comes and ends hunger and clothes nakedness. And, this, when it says all goodness who destroys evil, you see, there is a point tipped when goodness destroys evil, when satiety comes, when one has reached that point of satiation and ends hunger. When we eat, we're so hungry, just even on a physical level, we're so hungry, and then we eat, and we had the first morsels, and that pain subsides. But then there's a point where we're satiated, and we're not full as in overeating, but satiated. And we notice the point where hunger ends. And then nakedness, when if you've not had clothes, and you're that point where you're robed, and that nakedness leaves. These are turning points, and important turning points. And so he uses those metaphor and analogies. Like when the sky becomes calm after a heavy storm. We know that point, that turning point, and warms all who are chilled. I mean, we know that turning point. Like fire that cooks what is raw. We know when it's done. Like water that quenches thirst. I mean, we know that point where when we drink water, our thirst is quenched. And if we keep drinking, we'll just have just another kind of discomfort. We'll shift from discomfort, comfort to a discomfort. See with your own eyes, the arbitrator is a cheat. The appeaser is causing misery. And he who should mitigate is causing suffering. You know, we have a humanity that can't see this. Cheating diminishes justice. So render good account. In other words, count things failing. You know, when you have a little children, and let's say the older one has, they have French fries, and the older one, let's say the older one is 7 or 8, who can count, you know, some counting, gives the little one 2 French fries and they have 10, the little ones knows they can't count, but they know that's not right. And I remember as a little girl with an older sister, 2 years older than me, my mother had her own justice, and so that my sister and I would, you know, always not have that conflict and work things out. When we had something, if it were a cupcake, that's what we had. 1 cupcake, my mother would say, okay, she'd give us a knife, and she would say the one who one will cut it in half, but the other one will get to choose first. So we were always very careful to cut right down the middle, because it wasn't cutting yourself a big piece and giving your sister the little piece, because we knew the other got to choose first. So cheating diminished justice, so render good account. And justice will be neither insufficient nor excessive. And that's what this is saying, what I'm saying, you know, it's just right. It's what, you know, no one's trying to get more than their share, just right. So act accordingly. If you acquire, then give to your fellow man, for chewing is without merit. And you share, and your share of the cargo will be what you seize. My anguish leads to separation, and my accusation brought departure. One cannot know what is in the heart. Don't be negligent. Act at the accusation. If you sever, who will join? You know, I mean, look at the severing that's happened in the continent of Africa, with countries divided by the Berlin Conference, in this grab fest. If you sever, who will join? Look at how the nations are trying to join. The sounding rod is in your hand. A rod that makes waters accessible that have stayed behind during low tide. If a ship goes down, it is looted and its cargo perishes on the ground. At every embankment, it is known. You are educated, now here he's shifting to the other side, enlightened and accomplished, but not for cheating. You act the same as everyone. You know, just trying to call him to his greatness. You act the same as everyone, and your environment is corrupt. So he's telling him who he can possibly be. You are educated, enlightened, and accomplished, but not for cheating. But you act the same as everyone. In other words, you're being affected by what is around you, and your environment is corrupt, and every man in your environment is corrupt. Molester of the entire land. The cultivator of wickedness is watering his garden with evil to make his garden grow with falsehood and to water everlasting doom. And, we are, looking now at how humanity is working out this major dimensional shift that we're in. And this peasant came to plead with him for a seventh time. And he said, "High steward, my lord, you are the helm of the entire land. The land sails in accordance with your command. You are the equal of Tahuti, who judges without being partial. My lord, may you condone that a man calls upon you concerning his just cause. Don't be outrageous. It is not for you. One who was happy becomes anxious. Do not scheme for what has not yet come. Do not rejoice in what has not yet happened. Considerateness extends friendship and dismisses an offense that happens. One cannot know what is in the heart. Subverter of the law, destroyer of rectitude, there will be no poor man alive if justice does not attend to him when he is robbed." And, we can certainly see all of this in its occurrences of the world, where there's been so much robbery. We see, emaciated and dying children, their warfare, pitting one tribe against another, has resulted in no crops growing, just a decimation. Now my body is full of misery and my heart is laden with grief. It comes from my body because of the condition thereof. It is the breach of a dike, its waters pouring through as my mouth opens to speak. So I have now plied my sounding rod, bailed my water, given vent to what was on my mind, and washed my dirty laundry. My speech is done and my misery has ended up before you. So he's poured himself out. What more do you need? Your neglect will lead you astray. Your advance will befool you, and your greed will make you acquire enemies. Will you even find another peasant like me? In other words, will you get course correction down the road? Or will the lazy petitioner be waiting at the door of his house? There is none silent whom you let speak, none sleeping whom you aroused, none sleeping whom you roused, none downcast whom you enlivened. So what is it good to be in power when you causing death around you? None speechless whose mouth you opened, none ignorant whom you let know, none foolish whom you educated, uneducated whom you instructed. Yet officials should be people who dispel injustice, lords of goodness, craftsmen in creating what is, people who mend a severed head. And this peasant, in other words, put back together again. And this peasant came to plead with him for an 8th time and said, "High steward, my lord, one sinks low through greed, and greedy man is without achievement. He achieves only failure. You are greedy, but it does nothing for you. You steal, but it is of no benefit for you. And we have men who are going out into space to hit that point where they experience weightlessness, but their hearts are heavy with much that needs to be transmuted. You who should let a man attend his truly good cause. In fact, your possessions are in your house and your stomach is full. I mean, think of the full, you know, all that you have, and still the greed is running rampant there, not satiated. The barley brims over, it is so abundant, and its excess perishes on the ground. Thief, robber, snatcher. The officials who were appointed to repel evil assume, should be shelters from the aggressor. The officials who were appointed to eradicate falsehood, they're, you know, creating the big lie. And the fear of you wouldn't permit me to appeal to you. You do not perceive my heart. The humble man who returns to make a complaint to you, he cannot fear him to whom it is submitted. In other words, you know, you make a complaint, you got to be fearful of being beaten. And we see Khun-Anup was dealing with that. To make his complaint, you cannot fear him who submits it to you, though no brother of his can be fetched to side against you in the street. Your plots of land are in the country, your earnings are in the estate, and your provisions in the storehouses. Officials are giving to you, are giving gifts to you, and you are still robbing. Are you a thief? People are ushered into you. Are you a thief then? Are people ushered into you? Troops being with you for the division of plots of land? Troops being with you for the division of plots of land? Do justice for the Lord of justice, whose justice has justice. I mean, consider, beloveds, what our African ancestors thought of great value and of importance. Pen, papyrus, palette, and of Tahuti, be aware of doing evil. The goodness of a good man is good to him, but justice is for eternity. And our African ancestors were working for eternity, not the immediate delay of, and I think I talked last week about these studies with children, you know, how they would say to the child, well, if you can have this piece of candy, you can eat it now, or if you wait 10 minutes, you can have 3 pieces of candy. And the child, long-term studies that show that the child who could delay gratification had a better outcome in life than the child who had immediate gratification and eat the candy. When goodness is good indeed. It goes down with him who does it to the necropolis. When he is buried and the earth envelopes him, his name is not effaced on earth, and he is remembered on account of the goodness. So again, this is Ani, you know, what do we want to be remembered for? This is the norm of the divine worlds. If it is a hand balance, the norm of the divine word, then it is not crooked. If it is a stand balance, then it is not biased. Look, I will come and another will come. In other words, justice will just keep coming, will just keep coming. So you should inquire, but do not respond as one who questions a humble man. Do not attack one who cannot attack. You show no mercy, you are not troubled. You do not destroy, you do not flee, nor do you give me a reward for this good speech that comes forth from the mouth of Ra himself. So we're not looking for any earthly reward for having spoken well, but it comes from a much higher authority and power, Ra, the creator itself. Speak justice and do justice, for it is mighty, it is great, it is enduring. One will find its truth worthiness. It will lead to blessedness. Can a balance be crooked? A balance cannot be crooked. When it is its pans that weighs things. So we're back to the scales, the pans of the scales. The balance cannot, and I'm going to show you quickly some PowerPoint. Just want to finish this. There can be no excess of rectitude. An evil deed cannot reach harbor, but the hindermost will reach land. And this peasant came to plead with him for the 9th time, beloveds, and said, "High steward, my lord, the tongue of the people is their stand balance." So I'm going to go to this slide in a moment to talk about Anubis. Now let me do that now. And it is the hand balance that detects deficiency and inflicts punishment on him who ought to be punished. One sets the standard after you, falsehood when its need arises, but the truth returns to correct it. Truth is an aspect of falsehood, one just holding in balance, which means it is made to thrive, but is not gathered in. When falsehood sets out, it goes away, but it goes astray. It cannot cross in a ferry and it cannot row. As for him who is enriched by it, it has no children, no heirs on earth. As for him who sails with it, he cannot reach land. His boat cannot moor in his harbor. Don't be heavy, you haven't been light. Don't delay, you haven't been swift. Don't be partial. Don't listen to the heart. Don't disregard someone you know. Don't be blind to someone who looks to you. Don't fend off someone who appeals to you. May you abandon this neglect, and may your verdict be accounts. Act for him who acts for you, and don't listen to anyone who is against him. Summon a man concerning his just cause. There is no yesterday for the negligent, no friend for him who was deaf to truth, and no holiday for the greedy. The accuser becomes wretched to be a suppliant, and the opponent becomes a murderer. Look, I am pleading with you, but you do not hear it. I will go and plead concerning you with Anubis. I will get to Anubis in a moment. Then the high steward Renzi, son of Meru, sent 2 guards to bring him back. And this peasant was afraid, thinking it was done to punish him on account of these words that he had said. And this peasant said, a thirsty man's approach of water, the reach of a nursling's mouth for milk, such is death for him who prays to see it come, when his death comes tardily for him. Then the high steward Renzi, son of Meru, said, don't be afraid, peasant. Look, you will arrange the matter with me. But this peasant swore an oath. So I will eat your bread and drink your beer forever. The high steward Rensi, son of Meru, said, now wait and hear your petitions. And from a new papyrus roll, he had every petition read out according to its content. Then the high steward Rensi, son of Meru, delivered them to the majesty of the king of Upper and Lower Kemet, Nebkaro, or Nebkare, justified. And so now we're appealing to the Nesu Biti himself. And they pleased his heart more than anything in this entire land. Then the majesty said, pass judgment yourself, son of Meru. And the high steward Rensi, son of Meru, sent 2 guards to fetch Nemtenok. Remember Nemtenok, the thief here? Then he brought, an inventory was made of, and he found 6 persons, as well as his barley, his amur, his donkeys, his swine, his small cattle. This Nemtenok to this peasant, and all his of this Nemtenok. And so, beloveds, you see at the end of the story, all that Nemtenok had taken was restored to the pheasant and the peasant, and Nemtenok was made poor. We're just at that time. Let me see, I don't see any questions. Let's see, Grand Rising family, okay. All right, so I was gonna show, but we are at that time and we wanna honor time. Let me just see here. All right, so I'm gonna save that for next, because we finished the story. And if there's any questions, I don't see any questions. And let me see if I can do this. And we have 3 more minutes. Let me go to this PowerPoint and show you here. Let's see. Here. Just wanted to show you some images, and we can always stay longer on them next time. But the metaphysics of balance. So last session, beloveds, I showed you this image. And current of what, let's see, slideshow. Okay, I showed you this image last week of knowing that point when you have balance. It is the metaphysical understanding, the metaphysics of balance. It is an exact science. It is an exact science. And I remember when I was a little girl trying to learn how to ride a bike and holding onto a fence to try to balance myself. You either, when you strike that point and you can just ride, you're not tipping off to the left or to the right. Balance is metaphysical. It is very precise. And I showed you this last time, what our African ancestors used, this plumb bob, or this string with the weight on it which was a tool used to demonstrate verticality. How do we know that point? And I showed you this image last week. And here's another example of how our African ancestors use this verticality and horizontal the horizontality as well, the verticality and the horizontality. And this is the plumb line. And the plumb line is the tongue that you see on the scale here that Anubis is holding. So it is him. Let me grab this in this last 1 minute. I'll keep you all this so I can show you this last image, and then we can talk more next time. Let's get the spotlight here. See this, this is the plumb line. And it is Anubis who is helping in this precision of balance of the horizontality with the verticality, and the weight of the heart against the lightness of the feather, the precision of it. And it is, and of course it's Tahuti that's taking these measurements and recording. And this is a point that is struck. It is metaphysical, and it is tangible. We know it when we strike this point. And beloveds, this is also that crossing point where the horizontality and the verticality are meeting. And it is very precise. Justice is precision, and either it is struck or it is not. And I'll read you this here. This can be found in volume 2 of the Gods of the Cometians or the Egyptians by Wallace Budge, and it's in volume 2. And it says, in the judgment scene, Anubis appears to act for Osir, with whom he is intimately connected, for it is he whose duty it is to examine the tongue of the great balance and to take care that the beam is exactly horizontal. All right, so here we have our horizontal and our vertical at once. Thus, so that the beam is exactly horizontal. Tahuti acts on behalf of the great company of the gods, and Anubis not only produces the heart of the deceased for judgment, but also takes care that the body which has been committed to his charge shall not be handed over to the eater of the dead by accident. I mean, just the precision in the execution of that law. I mean, you think about people who are imprisoned and they're executed, and then later you find that they were innocent. We are in our exact art and science and forensics didn't let that happen because of the precision of our measurement. And look at how crooked this system is, that it would execute innocent people. So I'm coming back here, beloveds, and here. So here is our beloved Anubis in the tongue, and beloveds, here is our tongue, and how, if we are speaking out of both sides of our mouth, duplicitous, deceitful, with forked tongue, with the big lie, we are returning to our Kemetic wisdom, that we know the art and science of living justly, being ma'akaru, true of voice, true in our tongue, true in our speech, of good speech, as our beloved Khun-Anup has been. And so with that, let me start my share screen and come back. All right, let's see, we have one comment in the chat. You answered my question, oh, okay, all right. So I think we were in listening mode mostly today. And so on that note, we have moved through our story of the Eloquent Peasant with all the applications that we can make in our daily living. And to that, I say to you, isn't it a joy to be steeped in our primal wisdom and to know and have reference on how to do the good and perfect thing, and how to speak the good and perfect thing into existence, and to do the good and perfect thing. And on that note, beloveds, I'll look to see you next Sunday. Onka Jasaneb, life, prosperity, peace and blessings to everyone.